thank you, Claudia, for introducing me this way. Thank you very much. And I'm really excited to share not so much my story, but my work and my vision for you as an aspiring author, or perhaps already a published author. Marlene has joined us, so she's a published author, but still my vision goes for anybody who wishes to pass on their story, their knowledge, their expertise to others by a book, by writing. And why I specifically say this is not my story is because I didn't mean to start this way, but I often like to connect with what's happening in the room or what I'm hearing from people. Your book, although you are the author, you're the main character in producing your book. Your book is never about you, not even when you write a biography. And the way I look at it is that you do this, you write for your readers, and it may well be that it's about your life. If you write for your business, it definitely is about how you conduct your business, what you see in front of you, what your customers can gain from you in your work, what your readers can gain and learn and change in their lives from reading your book. But you are not, or your book is not about you, because then it will not be that interesting to read. So keep that in mind, that you write your book for your readers, and then it can all be about what you have to offer. Obviously the content is yours and your message is yours. So, well, that was my welcome message to you. And I'm looking at my 7-point program for the next 50 minutes. That means that all these 7 points are going to be short. I will not be talking all of this hour, because I promised, and what I write, that's another thing. When you write, you make a lot of promises without perhaps realizing, but your reader, when they read what you write, they receive promises from you by reading what you read. So to be really aware of that is a good point, and you may want to make note of that listening to me in the next hour. So the promise I'm making is, or I made rather, which is one I'm going to fulfill on, is that it's going to be interactive. So you are going to be doing some writing, nothing scary, but if you consider a writing coach to support you on your book journey, and that may not be me, but the only really safe way of doing that is to experience some of how that person works, because only then can you say yay or nay, or maybe not yet, or not at all, whatever your answer is. But it's nice to know that before you start and embark on the journey together than halfway through. Isn't that right? I think we'll all agree on that. Okay, so my little program, I'm going to just briefly point those. I'm going to share with you the 3 main ingredients that you need in order to write your book. And then I'm going to ask each and every one of you, and I say this in advance, so you can have a little think, maybe not think, but feel about it. If you want to write a book, or even if you don't want, just play with me and then pretend for the next 45 minutes that you do want to write a book. Have a think, and I'll ask you one by one in a moment what the main theme, the main topic of your book is going to be, because that's the first ingredient. You need to have a main topic. And then I'm going to ask you what that theme is, and then I'm going to explain the value and the power of questions, because this is what I use in my work all the time, questions and the power of it. Then I'm going to give you a small writing exercise together. So if you don't already have that, please have paper and pen ready. Not a lot of paper, but way enough to be writing for. An A4 will do. And then I will ask you, and you don't have to say yes, but I will ask you, when you've written your text in that exercise, I'll ask you to read it to us, only if you want to, but there's a benefit in that, so that's why I always ask that. After that, I'd like to review that a little bit. I really like to hear from each other and share with amongst ourselves what it is that what your insight was, what it was like for you. And then I have a call to action that's about a gift that I want to give you if you're interested, but we'll do that in the end. And of course, I'd love to finish off with some questions that you can ask me. So I'd like to see thumbs up if you agree with that little program for the next 45 minutes. Yeah, I see some thumbs up. Well, I hope you bear with me. Then let's start. What are the 3 main ingredients for your book? And there's much more to say about this, but the main ingredients, because a lot of people think that writing a book is a huge project, so huge, in fact, that a lot of people who've been wanting to write a book still haven't dared starting, and maybe that resonates with you. I don't need to see hands up if that goes for you, but you'll recognize that if that's the case for you. And to be truthful, I've had the same thing. I've never worried about writing, but writing a book, that was something else. So I did write 2 books, one as a co-author, one by myself, but it took me 9 years for that first book to actually finish it. Not that I wrote for 9 years, but big gaps in between of doubt and whatever you can encounter on that journey, I encountered. And then it can still work. So how great is that? So yes, it is a big project, but if you get the right help, and you know where you're going, and you know how to structure it, and you know what the main ingredients are, then you're already very much on your way. So the main ingredients are that main thing that will be asking you in a minute, your main topic. And you can see that, and in fact, all these 3 ingredients form, the way I see it, like a beacon in the distance. That's your book, that's your beacon. So whenever you get distracted or doubtful or whatever happens, you have that beacon, you have these main ingredients that will, pull you back on track. So that's good. So the theme, the main topic being number 1. Number 2 is your ideal reader. Have a clear image about who your ideal reader is. Now, if you write for your business, that could be your ideal client or someone who's very similar to that, because your ideal client might not be your reader, and your ideal reader must be wanting to do some reading, so there could be a discrepancy there. But yeah, if you know who you write your book for, then you know what your vision for them is, and also you can then develop your main promise that you want your book to deliver for that reader. Because if you do not know who that reader is, then you don't know what to write, and then you're going to write for everybody and nobody will want to read it. So that would be a crying shame, really. So that's number 2 as an ingredient. And the third one is a list of questions, and I call that a blueprint. And I'm not going to say much more about the word blueprint. If you want to know more about that later on, then please ask. But a list of questions will do, because that's basically what it is. What that list of questions also is, it's a tool to write, and I'm going to set that exercise in a moment for you to do that and experience that and see how that works for you. But it's also the foundation of your book. It's the main structure. It's literally the blueprint, as if you were building your own home. Writing your own book is there's a huge analogies in building your own homes, because first you need a plan. Well, originally plans were drawn with white ink on blue paper, called the blueprint. That's what a blueprint comes from. And so you need that first, and then you start building up. So you start with a bigger picture, and then you narrow it down, and you get the structure. It's got to be in a right order, because you can't put in the stairs before you put in the foundation. You can't put the roof on until you've got the walls up. So there's a structure, and that structure, that blueprint, is hugely liberating for you. It does take some time to construct that and to put that together, but once you've got that, then you know what's going to go into your book. You don't need to think about that anymore, and where you can stop thinking, then you can start writing in the flow and let the intuitive value that you have come up and put into words. That's the book writing in a nutshell. Maybe there are some questions at this stage before we do I'm going to go into the questions, so about writing. So put up your hand, please, if you have a question, and then unmute yourself. No? Okay, then I'll carry on until I'm told to stop. Right, now the next thing is what I wanted to explain about writing questions. Why am I so set on questions? Well, for one reason, questions guide you. Any person, anywhere in this earth, whatever question you see or hear, immediately you are the automatic answering machine of that question. It comes up like an image, or, you know, when I ask you, well, what do you think of the weather today? You have an answer. And the interesting thing is that even something as unimportant and as that question about what do you think about the weather today, if you were to answer that in the same way that you're going to do the writing exercise in a moment, all the answers will be different. And all the answers will be in your, what I call your language, your voice. All the answers will be coming from all of you, and not just what you've been thinking in your mind. And this is what questions can do. So imagine that your whole book, before you start writing, first is a list of questions in the right order, really specific and relevant questions to your audience, to your readers, and to your topic, and to the questions that you know that your readers have, or most of them have. Then the writing becomes a lot easier and also less stressful, and doesn't cost as much time. So that's the way I work, always. And it doesn't stop. Once you know how to write this, and you enjoy doing so, you trust the process, that's another thing, then there's nothing you cannot write by using this way. I've written my most difficult email messages during my divorce many years ago in this way, because it's not so difficult to think which questions you want to answer. And once the questions are there, it's so much easier to create your answer. So that's what I want to say about that, and how I use that in creating a blueprint with you when you want to write a book. And that's something I can't really explain here. We haven't got the time, but if you're interested, then let me know afterwards. And so what I want to do is I want to give you a question, and what I want you to do is write down the answer, but don't start writing just now. I'm going to give you a specific way in which you can answer the question, so that you tap into that intuitiveness. In other words, tap into all of you, and not just what you know in your mind about your topic. And I realize just now I haven't asked you about your topics, but I will do that after we've done the writing exercise. So I'm going to give you the question, and it's good if you write that question down so you can look at that question in between. And then what I'm going to say, and this is just to inform you, don't start writing just yet. Then I'm going to say, look at the question, let the image come up, and then write it down, describe that image. That's how you're going to answer the question. And the most important thing to remember is to write as physically quickly as you possibly can. And this also helps you not to let your thinking take over, because thinking may be used, but only as a support, not as the main driver. And also, by writing as fast as you possibly can physically, you are much more approaching the way you would speak that answer in the spoken word. And that means that you are always authentic. It's always your voice. The congruency in anything you write, if you do it this way, is smooth, always, and you're always unique. Nobody will answer the same question, and you are going to prove that. And I know this always works, because I'm going to set you the same question. So is it clear how I would like you? And then 5 minutes, I'm going to stop you after 5 minutes. So if you dry up after 3 minutes, that's fine, but 5 max, so that we're not going to write a whole encyclopedia, but just a short, brief, pointed answer. So the question I want you to ask, and write it down first, is what is your main message to your ideal reader? And don't stop thinking what that is. All I want you to do at this moment is to write that down. What is your main message to your ideal reader with that book in mind? So let's leave that question for a minute. You've got it written down? Okay, excellent. Then before we do the writing, I still want to know what your main topics are, because then I know what you're going to be doing when I ask you to read it out, what you've answered. Claudia, what is your main topic in 1, 2, or 3 words for your book?
To improve the health of the employees, you know? I'm in HR field and I want a book about how to get healthier employees.
Okay, excellent. That was 3 words, right? Okay. Justice, what in 1, 2, or 3 words is the main topic of your book?
Owning your own narrative.
Wonderful, thank you. Frida?
The journey about intercession. Intercession.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I meant to write these down, but that's going to take too much time. We're not going to do that. Excellent topics. Jerry, what is your main topic for your book? Can you unmute yourself? Is that working? No, try and figure it out. I'll move to Karen, come back to you, Jerry, in a moment. Karen, what is your main topic?
The power of sensitivity.
Of?
Sensitivity.
Sensitivity, thank you. Marlene, what's your main topic?
Lessons of the soul.
Lessons of the soul, wonderful. And Aldrin, are you able to listen in and write with us? No, not yet. Cherry, how about you? What is your main topic?
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom, excellent. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing that. Now, there's a great variety, isn't there? So back to that question, what is your main message to your ideal reader? So in a moment, I'm going to explain it first, and then I'm going to do it again, and then you can start writing, and I'll mute myself by then, and I will keep the time. I'm going to ask you to look at your question, to let the image come up, and then to write that down. So to write down the answer of your question. Yeah, is that clear to everybody? Am I clear? Okay, excellent. Okay, well, here we go then. Look at your question, let the answer come up, and write it down. Okay, I'm going to stop you because some of you had already stopped and some of you are still writing. So this was just under 5 minutes. How did that go? First of all, maybe for those of you who did write, because I don't mean to call you out, I'm just interested. Anybody? Yeah, Claudia, go ahead.
Yes, it's going much easier than I thought, you know, because you did the introduction and then you focus on the question and the thoughts coming in. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wants to share? Yeah, Justice?
I actually struggled a lot with this.
You did?
Yeah, just to get started, like to get the going, took me a while, and even then I had to change active voice before I could even put a word down to the page. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's obviously I'm giving you one try at this, and then it doesn't always work perfectly. And I fully realized when I first learned this about 12 years ago, it took me a while to make it something that came natural to me. Although right from the day one, I realized that I'm tapping from so much more than from just what my mind is creating. And anyway, I can talk a lot about that, but that's not really that important. So I just, as the reason I said that is I understand how you, you know, need some time to warm up, but I'll be interested to hear what you've written in a moment. Anybody else? Cherry, you were waving.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, Jesus Christ.
What did you want to share?
Okay. Wouldn't it be nice if you make money? If
Oh,
you
you're
make
reading
enough?
out? No, sorry, we'll do that in a moment. I just wanted to know how it went, and I'll let you read it in a moment. That's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Just hold on. Is there anybody else?
piece of cake, Saskia.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wanted to share something about how it went for you, or whether you have any questions about this?
Well, I started to write one or two since, but then somehow it blocked.
Okay. Yeah, well, that can happen. I don't have that very often anymore, but it also happens to me so occasionally. And the thing, this is exactly why I asked this question to you, because different things will come up for different people at different times. The thing about these questions is that when I'm setting you 5 minutes, but that's the maximum. If you dry up at 3, then that's fine. You've still answered your question. Because you are drawing from the image that comes up, you start with the best stuff, right? So it's okay to stop after 5, because after that it becomes either weaker or you start repeating yourself. So that's why there's a max on 5, but it could be 4, it could be 6. But if you carry it on until 15, you know, you will notice. It's interesting to try that out sometime, because you will notice that what you're producing will not improve so much anymore. But the other thing that can happen, like you said, Frida, that you block, it stops. What can help is to go back and look at that question and just look at it until something pops back up again, because the image will pop up, and then 9 times out of 10 you will find yourself being able to write a bit more as well. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, anybody else at this stage before I start asking you to read out what you've written? No? Okay, then Cherry, as you started, let's hear from you. What was your answer to this question?
Okay. I put 3 questions. I'm just asking questions because it opens conversation, and I like to conversate in.
Okay, let's hear it.
In 2 ways. Wouldn't it be nice if you make enough money without an employer looking over your shoulder? How much money do you need per month to give your partner, kids, if you have any, and yourself, of course, a decent life and become financially free?
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. And did that come easy?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else is bold enough to read to us what you've written? Okay, Karen, I'll come back to you, Claudia, in a moment. Please, Karen.
Allowing yourself to connect to your own sensitivity is an incredible tool of empowerment. When we are able to do this, we're able to create deeper connections within ourselves, the people around us, and get a clearer vision on what true leadership is, both towards ourselves as towards other people. Embracing ourselves, our sensitivity, helps us embrace and guide others in a more authentic and genuine way.
Wow, thank you. Did you find it exciting to read out to us?
Yes.
And when you, this is a well-considered question I'm going to ask you. Do you stand by what you've written?
I do.
Yes, I could hear that. And why do I ask this question? Because 9 times out of 10, and I was the worst of any of us who do that. So I know what it's like. We all judge our own, well, our own texts much more than we judge what comes out of our mouths. We have no shyness about answering a question. If you ask me what's your main message, you know, I will say so. But once we committed to pen and paper and then read it and maybe already start thinking about, you know, publishing it somewhere, even if it's just on Facebook, and then we have a different type of critic sitting on our shoulders, haven't we? So what I say to anybody who works with me and in the workshops and the writing days that I do is the only, well, let's put it another way, who is the only person it is important to like and appreciate what you've written? Is that you, or is that the reader? So to check what you've written, whether it's published proof in your own mind, is to ask yourself, do I stand by this? And if that's a yes, then you can publish it. You don't have to like it so much. You already know it. You're passing on a message. It has to be engaging to others. And if you write this way, it's engaging to those who will engage with you when they're speaking to you. So that's the only check question you really need to ask yourself. And if it's a no, then you don't publish it. And then you wasted 5 minutes. What you could do is maybe change something in that question, not the whole question necessarily. It could be, what was the question I said to you? What is your main message to your ideal reader? It could be, what is the most important thing you want your reader to achieve, for instance? So it's not so much a message, but what they can achieve. And then maybe you get a much nicer answer to that. So sometimes it's playing with the question if you're not, you know, you don't really stand by what you've written. But it hardly ever happens in my experience, and I've been doing this for the best part of 10 years. So thank you for sharing that, Karen. Who else wants to read? Claudia, you said you wanted to share, didn't you? Yeah, Justice, I'll come to you as well.
Yeah.
Claudia, go ahead.
So I realized what I'm going to write is a book, a kind of guide, a guide for management, how they can improve the health of their employees. Yes.
Yes.
So the things I was writing down is more like a chapter structure, maybe, because I'm thinking about, you know, first you have to find out, measure what is the current situation of your employees, and then you have to find out, is it healthy, a mental thing, or is it a body thing that has to be adjusted within the people? And then we can talk about tools on how to improve the health of the certain things that employees have, divided by mental health or by body health, and then find out what else, what kind of employee benefits we can introduce in companies to improve the health of the people. Think about the canteen, improve the canteen, improve the food, I mean, mainly, and the coffee corners and the fitness and everything people need to be more healthy, the air, everything, the surrounding. So that is what came up to me.
Yes, excellent. And you're right, this could be a list of tips. This could be also your chapter structure. This could be a lot of things. It could also be a paragraph. And I really appreciate you sharing this because what I realize a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking is that when you produce a text, let's say a blog post, for instance, or a list of tips like you've just done, that you can only publish that in one format on one platform, or maybe on 2 platforms, but in one format. And the beauty of it is that when you've got this list of questions, let's say a book, on average, it's with a wide margin, but let's 100 questions, that creates a reasonable book for a business owner. And those 100 questions, you can use your answers, that is, including the questions, by the way, you can use that to produce blog posts, to produce your book, to use it as a script for videos, to use it anywhere. And people, you don't have to just use it once. So like you said, it's a list of questions, a list of tips, and it's a list of the structure for a book. Yes, absolutely right. Your blueprint that you create for your book is a blueprint for virtually everything you can share anywhere, in any way, shape or form that you like. And this is what I love. And when I realized as many years ago that people, you know, as the author, you think, or the creator, you think that you are being repetitive. Well, too right you are, because you are the expert. Of course, if you said different things about the same topic every time, would you be credible? No. But it feels repetitive to you because you keep repeating the same knowledge and you're sharing that. But those who read it, they may have seen it 15 times in different shapes or forms, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have ingrained it any of these 15 times. So yeah, those lists of questions are a pot of gold in my eyes. Okay, Frida, would you like to share yours? I'm looking at the time here, but I think we can do.
Yeah, I have a whole small thing, and that is what the real message is about the knowledge about intercession and how it works. And I have a question to the part. As a speaker, it's easier to, for me, if I put it personally, as a speaker, it's easier to speak about it than to write about it. And that's for me now, the whole situation is how to write a book about intercession for business and ministries. Yes. And how it works and how to explain what it is. In the United States, it's so, yeah, it's normal the way they do it, they know it. And here in the Netherlands and in Europe, it isn't. So that I had so long time, over 10 years, I have it on my heart to write a book, and I can speak better than to write it.
Well, that's great. I focus particularly on, not that I'm looking at you in that direction, but I work mostly with entrepreneurs who have dyslexia or are image thinkers and you know do want a book but don't enjoy the writing so much, and there are many ways I can help them in that way. So if you, and still the questions work equally well, because that gives you that structure, and you know, with that beacon ahead of you, that will help guide your readers through the structure that you're presenting your content, and whether it's written or not. But that shouldn't hold you back from writing a book. It's just a slightly different way. But I'm happy to chat to you about that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Marlene, did you write? No, I thought I didn't, but I didn't want to presume too much. So thank you. Then what I would like to, there's two things on my list, really, well, three. I would love to hear your insights, but let's do that later. I would really like you to have the opportunity to ask me questions. So, if any.
Justus still has.
Oh yes, I apologize, Justus, please. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm dying to hear your active voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. My message is, so this is a children's book, keep that in mind.
Okay, good.
What I'd like for the next generation is the freedom for them to be themselves. It will take you your whole life to figure out what you are, but when you do stumble upon a possible answer, go with it. Go with your gut, own it, and be proud of who you are. Be someone uncertain, but sure of themselves. Yeah.
Wow. How does that, I can see you smiling.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it sounds like it makes me happy to say that, and it makes me happy to think that, you know. So.
Yeah, there's a reason for me asking, you know, people, well, you, and I always do this when I do this writing exercise, because putting it to paper and then hear yourself speak it out that's such a powerful, or can be a really powerful way to also feel whether you stand behind it to keep that phrase in operation. And if it makes your heart sing,
Yeah, I
it's
newly
really
gained insight here. So
you did, okay.
yeah,
Would you be willing to share that with us?
no, like the fact that the only question you need to answer for you to decide to publish something is whether you stand behind it. That is like that just takes away so much doubt, even for me. You know, it's just so that's wonderful.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and I know exactly where you're coming from. I used to think non-stop, and I even managed to do this way of writing. So I'm really set on helping other people to do that, because it's, and I'm hearing this all around. Entrepreneurs are such creative people. They have such strong and important messages to share to the world. So, you know, if writing is holding you back, that's where my passion kicks in to support you. So that's a great insight, by the way. And the other thing is, I haven't mentioned that, but it's a little bit in line with, you know, how do you decide yes or no, publish or not, is that once you've written your text by answering these questions, I always say, do not edit while you write, do not think while you write, don't stop while you write, that's why I want you to write as quickly as possible, because that's the only way you gain access to the whole of you, rather than and I've heard this in virtually all of what you've been sharing with me, and then your text is in your voice, your book must be in your voice, you cannot write somebody else's book. Well, I'm shooting myself in the foot here, because I do write ghostwrite for people, but even then, the only way I want to work with any author is that it's in their words, and that's something that I can do, and I have my ways of doing that. But you know, to tap into the wholeness of you and then write your text, that's so much more powerful and takes away a lot of the pressure. But that also means that you first need to write everything, and then you need to find some form of editing, of course, and linking some of the paragraphs. And but often you only need one word, or maybe add one question. It saves you so much time to do the editing afterwards, to your own editing, and then, of course, then send it to an editor and do the whole book publishing process, like Marlene talked about last week, which I did see on the video in the meantime. So I know there's hardly any overlap in what you did, Marlene, and what I did today, but I feel there's like a seamless junction from one to the other. So in reverse order then, actually, haven't we? But yeah, right. So let's hear your questions, please, or your insights. And Justice, thanks for sharing yours. Yeah, Claudia.
Yes, I'm so grateful that you shared this today with us, because, you know, before I thought, oh, writing a book is a never-ending story. You know, if I want to start a project, I want to see an end of it. And just by giving these handhelds with asking questions and finding a way to create your story, it gives me so much structure in the idea. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And what you're saying is absolutely right. And I haven't spent much time on that in this hour. Is the power and the benefit of using that structure. Because once you've got your list of questions, you know exactly in what order you put them in order. And then you also know, you've experienced it now, you spent 5 minutes answering a question. So if your blueprint is ready, and don't start writing before you finish your blueprint. That's a really no-go, because then you will have to think about puzzles and see whether things are doubled up or or missing and in the wrong place, then you lead yourself up the garden path with no point of return. But if you create that blueprint first, you know, and let's say you have those 100 questions, that's your book, then you know exactly that you need what your writing time is. And that takes away all of the pressure. It's 100 times 5 minutes. It doesn't mean that you're then finished. Doesn't mean that your book is published, but then it's ready for editing. So you can, and I'm not saying it doesn't take a lot of time to create a blueprint. That is a pretty, yeah, that does take time, but it's also very clear cut. It's very structured. You know where you are, you know how much more you need to do. So you're never wondering, well, how much more do I have to do? Well, I remember last week, no, 2 weeks ago, I forgot the name of the lady who was in here. She said, I just keep overflowing with ideas. I don't know where to stop. When is it going to book end? Well, with my approach, you have none of that to worry about. And if you enjoy that, then do it that way. I'm not saying you can't do it another way, but entrepreneurs, they have other projects to do and run and finish and enjoy, and they have customers to support and help and satisfy. So writing a book is often, albeit important, it's not the main effort of in a day's job for an entrepreneur. So to have structure and overview is really valuable. Yeah, Cherry.
I want to add something. In 3 weeks, or less than 3 weeks, 2 weeks and a half, I will finish my education of NLP Master Practitioner. And we learned a lot of tools that I would like to use to write a book of fairy tales for adult people.
Mm-hmm.
And use tricks and humor to teach people or give them insights
Mm-hmm.
that would help them. I never did it, so I'm thinking like, I don't know if Claudia knows this
Pippi Langkous.
person.
Yeah.
Pippi Langkous. You know Claudia? Pippi Langkous?
Of course.
Perfect.
Who in your relevant is.
So-
Yes, I know
Pippi Langkous says,
Langkous.
Pippi Langkous says, I've never done this, so I think I'm capable of doing.
Wow, it sounds an exciting project. And I'm do it the way you obviously got this worked out, so go for it, I'd say. It brings me to another part of the editing process, and that is not truly editing, but once you've got the questions, once you've created all your answers, then if you want certain elements, and I'm not saying you can do that with NLP, I don't know enough about that, but let's say I have another example. You want to add humor, I heard you say that, or you want to add personal experience, like to highlight why you say things or what you've been through, then the order in which you do things is so important, not as to kind of deconstruct what you've written in the flow. So do that after you've written everything, and then see what are, and I'm certain that even by creating your blueprint, you gain a lot of clarity about what you want to add to it afterwards. It's a little bit like cooking. You know, if you want icing on your cake, you don't do that while you're baking the cake, but you know you're going to put it in at a later stage. And some language elements, just as what you said, is also a brilliant example of that, very practical. If you are aware that you want to make the choice of using active language only or predominantly, then don't worry about that while you're writing your intuitive answers, but do that later on. It's not any difficult task to do. So a lot of these things, if you want to add metaphors, do it later, because you've got your structure ready, you've got your content there, and then you, well, spice it up and decorate it, if you know what I mean. And the same goes with illustrations and a lot of these choices. Whether it'll work for you, Thierry, I don't know, can't give you an answer to that, but when your book's finished, or your manuscript anyway, let us know how you've been going on with that, please.
Thank you.
Anybody, any other questions? No. And then before I hand over to you, Claudia, to finish this off, and let me thank you. I've immensely enjoyed this, and I want to thank you for your openness and well, the vulnerability of sharing what you shared. And I have an infographic with some texts. Obviously, I deal in text. Called the 6 P's of writing your book. It's the cycle of publishing, no, publishing is not the last one, but preparing, participating, presenting, etc. If you want that, then let me know what I can do. Are we all in IMN? I think we are, aren't we? Then I know who you are. I will send you a link, a one-on-one to, so you can download that, because I have had both in English and in Dutch, so you can choose which one would suit you best. Okay. Yes. So, oh, Karen has to go. Okay, thank you, Karen. Thanks for your message. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend, and see you later sometime. So that's it for me. If you want a 6 piece, let me know, and I'll send you a message. And Claudia, over to you. And thank you for having me on today.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Saskia, for sharing this with us and giving us the education to start with. And I really recommend for everyone to come back to you and ask more about how we're getting further in progress, because this is just the start of everything, isn't it?